Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I'm so appreciative of your company. Welcome to A Pastor's Confessions. I'm a pastor, and I have a pretty big congregation, which I say in all of my videos. The reason why I say that is because this is my private YouTube channel where nobody knows my identification, and this is where I share some of the stories that I hear from my congregation and around the world. Because my congregation is so large, I do have access to YouTube, and a lot of people contact me from all over the globe, and I hear stories. But this particular confession is not my confession. It is a confession from a pastor friend of mine. And this pastor, he was really in a lot of trouble. So let's begin with the background. This pastor's name, for confidential purposes and privacy reasons, we will call him Pastor Ryan. Pastor Ryan was a very good friend of mine, and now he is actually in prison for the rest of his life. He was a pastor in a very small congregation located in Minnesota. Now, what happened was, it was his parents' congregation. His parents died and he took over. He never really wanted to be a pastor. What he wanted to be was a veterinarian, or a doctor even, but his parents convinced him that he was called upon and that he need to answer that call to God. Now, many of us are called, but only a few of us are chosen, because we choose not to answer the call. Ryan did not want to answer the call to serve God as a pastor. Don't get me wrong, he loves God even now as he's in prison, and he doesn't blame God for his incarceration. However, he did not want to be a pastor. He wanted to be a person that left the church and had nothing to do with it, because he was more spiritual than he was religious. He didn't believe in the Bible. He didn't believe in a lot of the content that we read in the Bible. He was more involved in the Bibles like Thomas and the book of Enoch and the book of Mark. He was interested in the book of James, the separate books, the book of Esther, and he would research a lot of information. So, you see, what happened was he started to go and preach out into the streets, preach out to people that were down and out, sick and shut in. And he really would try his hardest to help those people. Remember, he wanted to help people heal, animals and humans alike. So he did go to school and take a little bit of anatomy courses as well. He had a lot of doctor friends. But when he was on the beat on the street and he was preaching to homeless people and going around to help people who were down and out, he met a woman who was a drug addict. She was very much into drugs, but he saw a beautiful side to her. He saw a side to her that was promising, a side that had potential. She didn't even recognize her own potential. She came from a very bad family. She was molested as a child. She was injected by her own mother with intravenous drugs, and the list goes on and on. Well, she told these stories to the Pastor Ryan, and Pastor Ryan felt very sorry for her. He was very sad for her. They started to spend a lot of time together, and I guess you could imagine that the two of them started to become intimate, just like the old stories go. When he started to clean her up, You see, he took her into his own home, his family home, the home that his parents left for him that was on the same property as the church. He was an only child with his mother and father, and not only that, he had no children and he was never married. So, by taking her home, nobody was going to ask any questions. She started to attend church, and she was doing great. But the more stories she told him, the more he started to get angry at humanity and why they could destroy a little girl as she was becoming a woman. The things that they did to her, I cannot repeat here because it's still going through the court system. But when I say to you that it was horrible, you can trust me on the worst type of abuse possible. So, he couldn't take it any longer. And every time that he would go to this woman's neighborhood to preach to people, he would pass by the house she was raised in. Her mother still lived there, who gave her drugs, and her uncle who molested her. A lot of people in her family all lived and squatted into that one home. It was what he called a flop house, where drug addicts just go do their drugs and flop. Well, one day he knocked on the door, and he wanted to see if any of them wanted to be saved. And he asked them, "Do you want to hear the word?" And they said no. He told them that he has Sophia, the little girl, safe. He said that he's helping Sophia and she's getting clean and she's looking good. He showed them on his cellular phone an updated photo of Sophia. And you know what? They could not care less. They laughed and they said, "Oh, she'll be back in the streets again." And he said she was only in the streets because of this family. And they said, "Oh, so what?" The uncle said, "Oh, she was always a hot little girl anyway. She wanted a piece of me." And the pastor lost his mind. Yes, Pastor Ryan saw a bat on the ground out front of the house, a wooden bat. He left outside, he grabbed the bat, and he went inside and started swinging it. And he swung for heads. Some people tried to run out. But one thing I didn't tell you at the beginning of this story is that Pastor Ryan also learned martial arts. Is this starting to sound like a movie? Because when he told me this story, I had to tell you, it sounded like a movie to me. I told him you should turn this into a Lifetime movie. But he doesn't want to. And I don't blame him. This is a very personal and private story, but when he heard that I was doing a YouTube channel, he was very excited to share his confession. One thing he said to me was the sound of the heads popping. Some people tried to run out the house, but he would kick them and twirl around and kick the other one, and they were so high and so drunk that they couldn't get back up on their feet soon enough, and he said he was cracking skulls as hard as he could. And he said his target was 4 people: the mother, the father, the uncle, and the uncle's wife, who also used to tell Sophia that it's okay to have sex with her uncle. So you see, these 4 adults let Sophia down. Nobody says that they needed to be killed, but there is a point in life where we have to rethink our actions and the actions of others, and we have to realize that what goes around comes around. I'm not saying an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. As a matter of fact, Jesus says, turn the other cheek. But when you have a situation like this, it's difficult to turn the other cheek. Pastor Ryan, he was frustrated within his own life and his own family, and he took it into his hands to do the act of God. All he had to really do was go and record the people, but instead, he didn't think beforehand. Well, he actually didn't think that they would tell on themselves and admit what they did and laugh about it and mock the situation. So he did his best to try to tell them that they are wrong, but they continue to laugh. And now he is in jail and is still going through court because nobody can believe that a pastor would do this. And now they are trying to charge Sophia. They're saying that she was conniving and she was the one that got Pastor Ryan to do what he did. So I will give you the update when I get the update myself. And till then, please pray for the people involved. Thank you so much. And please, if you're in a similar situation or if you know somebody that's in a situation like this, remember that prayer does have strength and it can move mountains, and just the little bit of faith of a mustard seed can actually make a change in life. Please, don't make a temporary situation permanent, especially if that permanent situation cannot be changed. Pastor Ryan is now preaching in jail, and he feels like that's what his calling is, to help save all the people who are prisoners. But he could have at least still went back to school if he was not in prison and got himself an education and became a doctor. It's never too late. Don't make a negative temporary position a permanent position. Take care, everyone. Remember, being good to yourself and being good to others helps the world become a better place. Please take a moment to subscribe and make sure you hit that like button so I know that you like the video I put out for you.